Well, let me add my thanks as well to the new Mr. and Mrs. Gales, Andy and Kaz. Andy and Kaz first met, as was mentioned, at the wedding of one of Kaz's bridesmaids. And Kaz actually asked whether there were going to be any nice single men at the wedding that maybe she could be sat next to. So she was given a list of nice men, and Andy was not on the list. And later she asked, well, why wasn't Andy on the list? And her friend said, oh, well, Andy's always got a girlfriend. So, I just assumed he wasn't available. Nevertheless, I was very, very delighted that they did meet. And I'm delighted, Andy, if somewhat surprised that you found such a wonderful wife. Andy and I met at university. We were students together. For those of you who don't know Andy, I've come up with a few words to describe him to you, to paint a portrait. And the first word that springs to mind to describe Andy is hungry. There are two words that you should never say to Andy. Help yourself. Kaz, if Andy looks at you the same way that he looks at a shepherd's pie, then I can totally understand why you've fallen for him. If you're ever at a big meal with Andy, I mean, you can't see this now because the table's been cleared, but what you find is that all the dishes sort of migrate to his end of the table as he has his seconds and thirds and fourths and so on. And one of life's great mysteries is why he's so slim when he eats so much. But, I mean, seriously, it is extraordinary how much he eats. When we were students, student lunches, he'd polish off everything on the table and then he'd look around for more food. The only thing that was left is salads. Then he's bowl after bowl after bowl of salad. I was chatting to one of his ex-housemates recently who confirmed that he used to use 3/4 of a loaf of bread per day for his sandwiches that he'd taken to work. And, I mean, he's famous for turning up with supervision, just endlessly eating sandwiches from beginning to end, an utterly bottomless pit. And I live just around the corner from Andy, actually, and that's how I knew that things were starting to get serious with Kaz, because one of my main jobs in life is feeding Andy. He's always turning up for extra meals. He started not turning up so much at weekends, and so I knew something was going on. So, Kaz, I suggest you brace yourself for a food bill which is going to go up by much more than a factor of two, at least 4, probably 5 or 6, to be realistic. So, hungry. That's the first word to describe Andy. And the second word is gregarious. Been mentioned already. He loves spending time with people. And his natural habitat is in the pub with his mates or watching the football with friends, at a party, loves spending time with people. He's also lived with a ridiculous number of people over the years, or lodged with a ridiculous number of people. I strongly suspect that he's been lodging with multiple families at the same time in order to get extra meals. I've definitely hosted him for dinner, and then he's been off for another dinner with a host family. But he loves spending time with people. And as has already been mentioned, he does pack his diary with social engagements like nobody else that I know. He doesn't really believe in buffer time between subsequent activities or any transit time. So he's always dashing around frantically like a maniac. I'll often send him a message on, I don't know, Saturday saying, oh, it'd be nice to hang out on Saturday, you're free. And he'll say, yeah, great idea. I'm free 5 till 5:20. We could maybe go to the pub and then go around yours for dinner afterwards. So he packs it in. Today's a prime example, as has already been said. Yeah, let's play golf at 6 in the morning. Great fun, but classic Andy behaviour, packing it in. So, Kaz, the wedding invitation says you're leaving at 10:45 tonight, but just so you're aware, Andy might have a couple more social engagements planned afterwards, just to set your expectations for the rest of the evening. He's hungry, he's gregarious, hyper-sociable, and thirdly, He's happy-go-lucky, all carefree, a total rule breaker, great at blagging it, a massive bodger. He's also very gung-ho. Speaking from experience, if he ever offers to come and help you with your household electrical issues, always say no. Risk-averse, Andy is not. I'll give you an example. A few years ago, Andy was driving my wife and I to a holiday in the Peak District. And the fog came down like cotton wool, like you couldn't see more than 10, 15 metres in front of you. And all the other cars slowed right down. And Andy basically did the opposite. He sped up. So what are these cars slowing down? Starts overtaking them, overtaking them on the corner, zooming around. So my wife and I are there, white-knuckled, clutching onto the car. Andy's there pressing the accelerator, leaning forward, trying to peer where he's going. And then he turns to us and starts saying how bad his eyesight is and how he nearly went blind in one eye and used to wear an eye patch. And then he turns to us and says, oh yeah, I was made to go on a speed awareness course once. It's a total waste of time. So, gung-ho. He's always getting into scrapes. He's always got a story to tell. That's the sort of person that Andy is. Just a few weeks ago, Andy caused a major safeguarding incident at Kaz's church. So Kaz helps run the church youth group. And Andy was invited to come. Actually, I don't know if he was invited. He might have just invited himself. Anyway, so he goes along, and he mistook one of the teenage girls for Kaz. So he goes up behind this poor teenager, starts caressing her and snuggling and hugging. And as far as I know, the safeguard review is still ongoing. And the amazing thing is that he told me that story himself like 2 weeks ago, knowing that I was going to give this speech. It's completely unabashed, unrepentant, extraordinary behaviour. So, I mean, there's really no shortage of stories on Andy. It's quite phenomenal. Accidentally committing theft, accidentally asking other people's mothers out on dates. Then there's all the various sailing incidents. Stand aside, lads. I know how to sail a yacht. Crash. Sorry, lads, didn't see that bridge coming. There's my personal favourite story of the incident of the dead donkey in church and the eucalyptus leaves. He does contest the truth of that story, but ask me later. And then, of course, there's all the medical shenanigans. Andy is a urologist, as has been mentioned. He deals with the sensitive parts. We've had words about not sharing his forthright views on circumcision in public settings. We don't need to know that there are different ways of doing it, Andy, and you can take more or less off. Always going on about it. But if you are interested, then please ask him afterwards, and he'll be very happy to talk to you. Sadly, most of the stories are not quite appropriate for sharing, so I've redacted some of them. One of the strangest things that Andy does is is yoga with the Urology Social Club. The image of Andy doing a downward dog while talking about vasectomies with his colleagues is not an image that one wants to dwell on. I'll tell you one story about his urology. He had a patient who was oozing blood and pus out of his nether regions. And Andy was draining this patient into a bucket with a tube. And he goes out the room, puts his phone in his breast pocket, comes back in, leans over, and checks the catheter's got a good seal, and then plop into the bucket it goes, fully submerged in all sorts. And any normal person at this point would have got a plastic glove and taken it out and either incinerated the phone or thoroughly sterilised it. Andy, straight in. And he said something very non-committal about wiping. I think he wiped it on his back of his trousers. And seriously, one of his housemates is sitting over there, still refuses to go within 2 meters of Andy's phone to this day. So there's just endless stories. He's always getting into scrapes of various sorts. So he's hungry. He's happy-go-lucky, massive bodger, frantically, manically running around all the time. He's very gregarious. He's got endless stories. The last word that I selected to describe Andy is chuckle, because he's got a very characteristic chuckle, sort of cheeky little mischievous smile and chuckle. He's got the vibe of an innocent small boy, really. And true story, when he was a small boy, an owl fell down his chimney and he was convinced he was a wizard. And I can confirm that he's not a wizard, but he does have a sort of ability to cast a spell over a room. Because his mischievous, cheeky smile, cheeky outlook is infectious. He makes everyone else smile as well. So there you go, that's Andy. Always hungry, always dashing around like a maniac. Very gregarious, endless stories, lovely smile. Let me finish by adding one or two more things. Andy is one of the most humble people that I know. He's so genuinely interested in other people. And he's deeply honest, extremely kind. I massively look up to him, metaphorically, not physically. He's actually quite a lot shorter than me. And he loves Jesus Christ, and he loves telling people about Jesus Christ. And he points us to Jesus Christ in the way that he values other people and cares for other people. So I wish you both every blessing and joy in your new life together. And let's do a final taste together to Andy and Kaz. To Andy and Kaz.